God bless everybody. Today it's April 11, 2024. I've got a couple reports I want to bring to your attention real quick. This situation is moving quickly. It's very fluid and it potentially could explode at any time. And they're talking potentially some kind of retaliatory strike through Iran onto Israel through proxies or otherwise, possibly even an attack of Iran on Israel itself within the next 12 hours, possibly as we walk into the next day here, now that we have this end of Ramadan and this Muslim holiday ended. So I have talked about how we didn't know if anything would happen against Ramadan. It's supposed to be a month of peace and things like that, so it could happen right after that. And now this is over, and so we have to see how the this is going to react over there. So based on this article, that ended is going to end today, and then that would bring in the 12th. And so, what I'm trying to say is that it's basically it's open season on the Jews at this point, and I believe all these nations are going to come together to probably try to eliminate the state of Israel at this point. And so we need to be watching all these different things. So I found this article because you have to think how this could happen. There's so many different things that could happen in this potential attack between Iran and Israel and these potential proxies like Hezbollah, um, Hamas, Houthis, and different groups like this. Um, there's also groups in other regions of the world that are controlled by um, the Iranians. And so they could target not only Israel itself, but they could target areas just as Israel targeted Iranians in Damascus and Syria at their consulate or whatever. We could see Iran target Israelis across the globe in simultaneous attacks and things like that through these proxies and groups that they've established in different countries and things like that. So this could radiate out throughout the globe, and we have our own problems here in the United States where if this breaks out on a extreme level like it's supposed to, probably, then you're also going to see potential rioting in our own streets because the Palestinian sympathizers are going to come out and they're going to start to riot against the Americans. Because look, if this gets as bad as I think it's going to get, they're going to try to suck us into this war, and we're going to have to, at least at the beginning, side with Israel until we get pummeled enough to where Biden pulls us out and basically lets Israel be overrun, which is what it says in the Bible. All nations will abandon them in the end. So this is probably what's going to happen. But we have to think at the scale that this could potentially happen at. Now, nobody probably wants a nuclear war here. But I think in Netanyahu's head, as I watched him eliminate Hamas, or try to eliminate Hamas and try to eliminate them in totality, and that's amazing. We've had these totality events like a solar eclipse and things like that. He's probably going to have to deal with Iran and Hezbollah in the same fashion, where look, if he doesn't cut the head of the snake off, the snake is never going to go away, and he's always going to be threatened by this. This is probably the only time that Israel has and will have an open window of opportunity to go in and do total destruction against all the nations that are going against them, including Iran. So I would suspect that you'll see a limited type of attack through proxies of Iran onto Israel, through a lot of missiles and stuff, potentially even an invasion. I've talked about that. Israel would then retaliate in kind, probably attack, because look, they know Hezbollah and these groups are being run by Iran, so they would attack not only Hezbollah, they would attack other areas like Syria, Iraq, potentially even in Iran itself, which would be the red line on one side or the other, because if Iran actually attacks Israel in their own border, okay, that's a red line. If Israel attacks Iran in their border, then that's probably a red line, but this could happen, and I think you have an article here that indicates that you have a potential preemptive possibility that if this escalates to the point where they start using nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles to the point where we start to see nuclear events happen out here, or potential threat of nuclear events to happen, that we would see Israel literally launch what they call an E-bomb. So once these attacks start, we're going to see one side hit, then we're going to see the other side hit, and they're going to retaliate in kind based on the strength that they're getting hit at, to the point where we could see one of them get hit so hard that the other one feels they have to retaliate in a nuclear capacity. And don't think it can't happen, guys. It could happen. But Israel is, in their minds, ready for this, and what they would do would be they would launch these E-bombs, or these EMP bombs, which are electrically charged bombs that would take out their grids and their infrastructure and things like that. It would fry all their chips and things like that. This is what I talked about. When you get into Faraday cages, things like that, so you can protect your electronics, things like that. You have a potential where we've talked about the Russians could potentially launch a nuclear weapon over our atmosphere and blow that up, and that would then detonate over our atmosphere, and then that would electrically charge everything and fry out a lot of our systems and things like that. Transformers, your solar panels that are hooked up. And what it does is it gives a really quick electrical charge that heats everything up, and it fries everything out in a matter of, milliseconds. It just heats it up, fries all the, especially the electrical lines, things like that. It goes into your power systems, into all your brain boxes, your cars, everything goes down if it's not shielded in one way or the other. And so what we could see is potentially Israel would go in and hit multiple targets with potentially our help. Okay, you've got to put us in this picture. We know that Iran's a threat, and they're talking about them having a nuclear bomb if they don't already. Okay, so they would EMP these guys, knock out as many of their systems as possible. They might actually bomb certain areas. They got reactors that create the nuclear matter they could take out. This would then force Iran to escalate to the point of survivability. Okay, see how this works? And so Iran would then re-escalate. Now, I don't know whether it would go that way, but it does indicate in Daniel 8 that we have the potential for Iran to fall, and that then brings in a secondary player, actually a third player, maybe even a fourth player at this point, because you got the United States, you got Israel, you got Iran, and then you potentially even have Turkey. And so could Turkey get into this too, because they're an ally, supposedly, the United States and Israel, and so they might just want to take out this player Iran, okay, and they're going against the Kurds. They've got a lot of potential for Turkey to gain footing here if they cooperate and do specific things with Israel to begin with, but they're going to turn on them later. Now, Turkey has nuclear capacity through NATO and through us, and so they have the capacity, and they have nuclear weapons within their borders. Okay, a lot of countries do. They're part of NATO. They have the capacity. They have potentially, it's my understanding, approximately 50 nuclear weapons. Yeah, approximately 50 U.S. tactical nuclear weapons that could be used through these B-61 bombers. And so you have to look at Turkey as part of this equation. You know, we talk about Daniel 8 and how they're going to force the Kurds to align with Iran and still go in there. All this is culminating. Now, I'm not saying Iran's going to fall overnight. That's probably not going to happen. But if you start this campaign this weekend, in the next 12 hours, maybe tomorrow, through the weekend sometime, this will escalate tremendously, and you potentially will have all kinds of problems on the ground. And think of the refugee issues, and if Hezbollah gets in this, it's going to create another refugee issue there, and you potentially have the Kurds involved with Turkey. That's going to escalate another refugee issue there. If you have a bombing on Iran, that's going to escalate another refugee issue there. And so you're just going to see total destruction on the ground in the Middle East, and it talks about a quarter of the world going into war, and this is how this is going to happen. Now, I talked about how you sort of have to follow Alexander the Great's pathway, and I still believe that, because Erdogan will die, and he will then be brought back as a resurrected Antichrist in the near future, so this isn't going to end. Turkey will get into this, and I think he has to, because if Israel's being totally threatened, and the temple's being threatened, and all these different things are happening over there, they're not going to probably allow Iran to destroy that temple and the Rock of the Dome and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And another thing that you have to think about is, could potentially you see the Jews try to perform this red heifer sacrifice in the process of all this destruction? So if you're seeing a full-on siege on Jerusalem through all these proxies, I'm guessing that they're going to try to perform this ceremony to cleanse their people, because they know that they're under major distress, and they're going to try to do something to bring the Lord back to change their situation. So, and it didn't happen on Nissan 2, but that doesn't, they talked about it had to happen sometime before Passover. You know, we're trying to go with the dates they're giving us, but they're not doing it on the dates they're telling us. So you got to look at what's coming up. And what's coming up is you got Passover on the 22nd. You got that April 20th date that I've been talking about that takes you into the 1260 days of the Feast of Trumpets of 27, October 2nd. So that's something else you have to think about. Look, so there's a lot going on here that could all start to culminate all at one time, and I can't believe they're not going to create this sacrifice before Passover, because there's just too many things that are in place. Look, they prepped for the sacrifice. Hezbollah and these proxies have prepped for 30 days through Ramadan to prepare, to get their rockets and everything ready for this attack that's getting ready to come, because they were going to do this right afterwards. And we're just trying to figure out when it's going to happen. Now, all people out here, all sources that I find out here indicate that this is going to happen, that this attack from Iran will happen on Israel, and it will be retaliatory, but it may not be real extreme. It may be just enough to force Israel to do a retaliatory strike that's even greater, and then this just builds back and forth to where it just escalates to the point of no return. So I want you to make you guys aware of all this stuff. Also, if you move this to a potential EMP nuclear potential, even in the field of nuclear strike, this changes conventional warfare completely on the ground. Okay, once this happens, this changes the game on the ground, because this has never really happened before. Okay, so this is something else we have to think about. You know, if there's a nuclear bomb goes off, or they try to eliminate sites with EMP bombs, or these E-bombs, these magnetic pulse bombs that they're talking about here, um, this would change the game of war. Um, and I don't think it's going to be a good escalation. So I just want you to be aware that this is going to escalate. They're indicating anytime. It's, we're all waiting, but we don't look, we're all waiting for something to happen. But when this breaks, it's going to get stupid bad. Okay. So we may not wish we really hope this happens when it finally does. And I get it. We all want the Lord to come back. I'm in that boat all day long with you guys. I want him to come back, but I don't want to go through what's going to come up here because this is going to be extreme and terrible. So I just want you to be aware of all this stuff. Keep your eye on this one. This one's going to change quickly. God bless. Have a good night.